Welcome to the TaiyangNews and SNEC Solar Leadership Conversations. My name is Michael Schmela and I'm the Managing Director of TaiyangNews All About Solar. We're very happy to have with us Dany Qian, Vice President Global at Jinko Solar. Hi, Dany.
Hi, Michael.
Good seeing you again.
Right. Yeah.
And Jinko obviously needs no introduction. They are one of the leaders in the industry. We will talk about that later. They have been leader in efficiencies, a leader in innovations, 2 new technologies, and I think we try to do in the next 15 minutes or so a look at what has been happening at this interesting company in the last few months and what they are planning to do. Dany, Jinko Solar was a very early mover when it comes to TOPCon, which is almost a new standard. So what are the key learnings that you've made as a pioneer in that field?
For new technology, especially for distinctive technology, I think ecosystem is very important, because that's what happens in the production line is totally different from what happens in the lab. So ecosystem is extremely, the equipment supplier is very important. The ecosystem includes the material supply, the production, machine supply, and the tester institutions, but especially the production equipment is very important. I remember that some of our TOPCon machine suppliers, their engineers had spent 2 years living in our factories, working with our R&D teams and the production teams to tune and retune their processing parameters. They solved the problems together. Some of the very, very difficult technical problems, and they're not pretend to solve the problem. If you pretend to solve the problem, you go to some level and then you get stuck. But you're really working together to solve the problems. So I think ecosystem is very important. This is the key learnings we got from in the past 3 years.
Okay, so things have been moving much faster with TOPCon than most people anticipated. So I think I just took a look into the latest international technology roadmap for PV, which said that still that last year about 2/3 of the market was supplied by PERC. I'm not sure if this is correct, but I think so. This is the ballpark number, and this year it will be 40, and in 2026 around 20, and 10% in 2028. Are you seeing that as well in the market? And so because it went now so quick, and that seems to me a little bit long for the final transition to take place. And because if you look at yourself, you've been moving much faster. And how is your internal transition to be completed?
It will be much faster than we realize. And that by end of this year, I can assume that 80% is N-type, and maybe next year is 90%. So it will much faster, because the reason is very simple. That the P-type manufacturing, according to the financial reports, the P-type manufacturing, they are very, very suffering, and they suffer a great loss, even huger loss. So the P-type manufacturers, they will pull back or even stop their productions in P-type, because it's not a sustainable business. And that, for example, in Q1, only 3 of the top 10 players, they got positive margins. And these 3, their N-type percentage is very high. And And the Jinko was the highest, almost double the second trainer. And for the rest, they suffered a great loss. And especially the P-type percentage high suppliers, I think that their life is very, very tough. So the Q2 situation is quite similar. So moving to the Q3 and Q4, we can forecast a gradual recovery, but I think the N-type will give the manufacturers much more opportunities than P-type one. And the second is the capacity of N-type this year will reach to 400 to 500 gigawatts, so it can fully meet the demand of the market. That's why I think the transition speed is faster than we can imagine.
So that means although these machines are of course long depreciated on PERC, so I think the demand simply for TOPCon is now so high that the customer simply wants to have higher efficiency and more powerful modules.
Because you know that the price gap between P-type and N-type is smaller, much smaller. So I can't find any reasons to stick to P-type from the customer standpoint.
Okay, so you mentioned also the financials in Q1. I also looked at the Q1 numbers, and it was quite impressive that you simply kept your shipment lead. Also in the first quarter, you had more shipments than anyone else in 2023, and that also continued in Q1. We all know there's a huge overcapacity in the market, and utilization rates are rather low in the industry. So we also see still some inventory. So what's the magic here, Jinko?
No matter what kind of application, the customer needs high performance and high efficient product at a reasonable price. So I think our capacity plan is based on our customers' strong and multi-year demand. So currently, our newly added capacity is fully utilized and supported by the order backlog. Our order visibility is now reached over 90%. So which means 90% of this year's capacity is pre-ordered, pre-booked. So I think the vertical integration and the industry high capacity utilization and good yield rates greatly contribute to the best ever cost structure. And that's why we, even in this dynamic situation, I think we are very confident that our TOPCon will be the next large and long-lasting node for Jinko.
Okay, so you feel so confident actually with the market, which is growing, obviously not as big as or as steep as last year, that you continue simply your expansion capacity, because I just read you had around 75 gigawatt last year, and now you want to go to 100 to 120 by end of this year.
Yeah. Even at that level, order backlog is reached 90% of the VCS capacity.
Okay, that's a nice position to be in. So we're living in, unfortunately, in this world that's more and more defragmenting. So we've been so used to a nice globalized world where goods could be easily traded. But now we see more and more protectionism taking place in countries and regions. What you've been very early on actually diversifying into new markets. Do you feel now well represented and well equipped for what's coming, what's happening in these days?
Currently, 3 of our 12 factories are overseas factories in Malaysia, in Vietnam, in US. And we can assume that we will have more and more overseas factories. This is for sure. And so we need to have a coherence and a culture that everything is, everything is aligned to the headquarters, to the Jinko's core value, and we should make sure that the headquarters support to each overseas factory is sufficient enough so that their performance can be aligned or matched to the factories in China. Because no one customer would like to have your US or Malaysia products that's at premier cost. So they don't want it. So we must to make sure our overseas factories' performance is as good as our Chinese factories. So this is a challenge. And so you know that the overseas factories, indeed, their cost is high, at least in the first several years. But it represents our global expansion, represents our value to the customer. And our values include the geographic flexibility. So we will be setting this value as well. And secondly, based on our large volume and the huge base, we will leverage this advantage, leverage this huge base and the volumes to further cost down. And our job is to minimize the cost gap between overseas factory and Chinese factories, and then to make appropriate returns. So one thing is for sure that our overseas factory will be more. And if you ask me what's the next overseas factory will be located, maybe in next weeks we will release the news.
Okay, nice. But so in terms of decreasing the cost gap, there will be always a cost gap, right? Because in China you have this huge ecosystem. You already talked about that in the beginning, which is nowhere else existing. So whatever it is, here it's easily sourceable. I think these supply chains simply don't exist in other markets. Huh?
Yes, just it's quite similar like the semiconductors. So I think, to be honest, it's very, very challenging to have your overseas factories cost equals to Chinese factories, because not only the labor cost, but also in China they have the very completely supply chain and ecosystems. So it's very, very challenging, but we try to minimize this cost. For example, like to increase the automation level, to bring our supply chain, bring our suppliers to overseas to build factories there and alongside or near the Jinko's factories. We try various efforts to minimize the cost gap.
Costs are, of course, also to a certain extent depending on size. It's because economies of scales. You are now building a 56 gigawatt factory and a vertical integrated one in China. I believe that's more or less the size of the EU market last year. I think that was around 60. So that means, of course, also such factories we won't see in the near future in overseas markets, even if it's that size for China is obviously also something unique. So can you just give us a little bit of a flavor how to imagine this 56 gigawatt factory, how that works, and this vertical integration, because it's just hard to imagine how many trucks are going in and out there.
Yeah, sir. When you go there and witness the factory even you can imagine, and also is over your imaginations. You know that one workshop is from the start to the end is 2 kilometers. Yeah. 2 kilometers, one workshop. It's huge. And inside the workshop, inside the factories, almost all the robots or the machines, no one there, and it's fully intelligent and smart, and automatic the productions, so it's huge. And I give you a figure that normally from the lead time from a raw material to ingot to wafer to cell to module, it needs to take 6 days, 60 days. But now in our Shanxi factory, it shortened to 7 days. So you can imagine what this product efficiency contribute to the cost.
Okay, interesting. So, so in terms of, let's talk just quickly on innovation. So you have been very innovative on several fronts. So I think you expanded into batteries as one of the first, zero carbon manufacturing. So I think when most companies didn't even think about this, so we were an RE100 member, and so and you also talked about BIPV products produced BIPV products among the big ones when a lot of companies didn't do that. So what we of course also know is in the solar industry, what one company does or innovate, I think it doesn't take long for the others to copy. So how are you able to continue to differentiate and keep that innovative lead? And so how do you protect your IP and your innovation?
I think that is relentless innovation, relentless invest on R&D. You know, that's last year, in a single year, that our R&D spending is over 7 billion RMBs. So it's a huge for private company, for solar companies. So non-stop, relentless investment in R&D is what we stick to. And you know that our R&D principle is very practical. That's R&D one generation, realize and mass production one generation, and leading one generation. So very practical. And we prefer to be copied rather than followers. So I think one step leading, one step further forward is good enough. That's why. And when their copying time give us lead time to work on the next generation technologies, I think it's good enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe so a lot has happened in the industry over the last 12 months. So even though SNEC's just starting, so if we sit here next year again, so what do you think will be the most interesting things that have happened over the course of that year?
Yeah, it's a tough year, to be honestly, but you know, I think if you refers to the industry circle, I think we are passing through the bottom of the circle, and the price has touched the bottom line, because below that line, no single company across the whole value chain will be profitable. Just as I mentioned to you, that Q1 and the Q2 is lots of companies that suffered a huge loss, and some even shut down or large-scale layoff. Yeah, happens. So moving to the second half, we forecast a gradual recovery, and the price will be bottom in June and improve in the second half. So with the demand pick up quickly, I think we should prepare more capacities in the second half for customers to grow, and especially as the N-type TOPCon as structure mega trend, this is give us a positive, a definitely positive for Jinko Solar business growth. So we are still optimistic of the whole year.
I think that's a great closing for an interview.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dany.